Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the April 27th, 2026 Administrative Services Committee. I'm the chair. I'm present. Also present is our vice chair, President Council Kuda, and also on the committee is Council Member Gail Larson. Joining us tonight in the room are the remaining council members, Joe DeWitt Foy, Sarah Stone, Jim Posh, and Jessica Tull. The first order of business is a discussion of the Parks and Recreation Board and the applicants. Just to give a little background, this is a 12-member board that has 9 residents serving on it. The 3 that are non-residents are the council member who is chair of the committee that is responsible for the Park and Rec Advisory Board, and that is currently Council Member DeWitt Foy, a member of the Board of Education that they select, and also a library board member that they select. Council selects the 9 remaining residents. The residents serve for 4-year terms, and they're eligible for 1 reappointment. Due to some recent resignations, we have 4 vacancies. At our last city council meeting, we had some time before we had to begin the regular meeting. And so in committee of the whole, we went into an executive session to discuss the 15 applicants. And we reviewed all of their applications and discussed all of them. I would just say that we do go into an executive session to have these conversations because sometimes they can potentially involve embarrassing or sensitive matters or items about the applicants. And it also enables us to have a frank conversation. I think I've mentioned before that same as a job interview, you wouldn't want your job interview broadcast to the public. So we had a lot of great applicants. And then based on the discussions, is there anyone that wants to make a motion, or I'll entertain a motion to fill 2 of these positions? We are going to hold 2 positions vacant, as I understand it, anticipating that there might be a reorganization of the board.
For now, when we have our first joint meeting, then that topic will be.
Because if no one was watching, I believe at our retreat, was it the retreat or our last committee of the whole that we've discussed, we're going to start having, rather than committee meetings like we currently have them, we're going to have a council committee of the whole. And then within those committee of the whole meetings on Monday, we will have agenda items for each council committee to, or council chairperson to essentially hold their meeting within the meeting. And the discussion is that we might link the current Park and Rec Board with your committee meeting.
Yeah, I would invite them to join the portion of the committee of the whole where we're discussing Parks and Rec issues.
And we're going to try that as a pilot program, and then depending on how that goes, we may very well fill the remaining 2 positions. Okay, so if I accurately summarize that, based on our discussions, I would entertain a motion on filling 2 of these positions at our next council meeting.
So I'll move
yes.
that.
Hold on.
Can we just take a quick step backwards, because this is going to impact kind of a lot of our committees and how this new format, running a meeting within a meeting. I mean, are we going to run separate YouTube videos?
I think that's tomorrow.
We'll do that
I think
tomorrow.
that's a discussion for tomorrow.
Sounds good.
I think it's a good discussion.
Well, I have other things about where do we have the space to bring in another committee as well as us, but let's talk about it tomorrow. Great. Thanks.
Very well under that agenda. So I nominate Nikki Newman and Laura Smith. That's the motion I'm making to be added to this committee.
Second.
Okay. This is only for committee members to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And just again to repeat, all of these applicants were discussed by all of the council members at the committee meeting. So that is all that I had on the Parks and Recreation Board. The next item on the agenda is a discussion of Chapter 11 of the City Code, which pertains to City Council. We had begun this review, over a year ago, and we got sidetracked with other business. So we're going to pick it back up, and it's a good thing that we are picking it back up because we have all council members here, and we have some new council members.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So is it okay if I?
Yes. So
Okay.
Before you, can I just backtrack
Oh, yeah,
to
sure.
the nominations real quick?
Oh, sure.
You'll have the legislation ready for May 4th? Is that your intent?
I will request that be done. And I guess before I voted on the motion, I should have asked whether there was any discussion of the applicants.
Well, we had actually had that
All
discussion.
right.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay. All right.
So you're going to take care of contacting Addie.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the first thing we need to do is review what we've done already, because it has been some time. And I'd like to move quickly through the review. I'm just saying this to everybody here because, we've gone over a lot of this stuff, and we do need to break some new ground while we're here. I would like to have Addie, our clerk of council, help prepare the changes. And I think the step after this would be to invite Bill Hanna to review the work that we eventually, hopefully, all agree on. And then Addie will, she'll probably need, she's out sick today, but we'll have her review this meeting and make the edits and so forth, so we have a document that we can hand to the law department. I also want to say to everybody, when you see at the end of any of the entries in here, there's 1101 and then it just goes on. And every once in a while you'll see, updated 12/6/21. Not really, okay? So put that parentheses, not really. What that means is that when the charter was changed in 2019, the law department farmed out our charter, our old charter, and the new charter change, and then anything that would interact with our revised code. So let's just say sometimes it was just, okay, go ahead. So that doesn't mean it was reviewed in the sense of like content. It's just, was there anything in there that would now be a violation of the new charter when they interact together?
I mean, I would even say I think it was probably the replacement of city manager with mayor or something.
A lot of
like
it
that,
was
because,
literally
yeah.
just that. So my point is, don't look at this and go, oh, this was just, revised 5 years ago.
Good point.
No. Okay. So
I have another question. Sorry. Do you have a red line of are we starting from the top?
we're still on paper.
Okay.
Here. Yeah, we're just, that's all we got. So with regular meetings and so forth, we were okay with that. On special meetings, we debated a couple of things, and this is 11102. One was, should we say anything about public comment at special meetings? And it was decided that we should not, that should just be on a case-by-case basis. There was, so in the sentence where it says 24 hours personal telephone notice or by written notice, we were going to stick in there that the clerk of council would be notified, and that goes for the mayor too. We had a case, sometimes things that go wrong can be very informative, so you get something out of it. I'll just say it this way. I don't think we as council people want the mayor calling around to council people, going around the council president, around the clerk of council to have a council meeting, a special council meeting, that it would all go through the clerk of council. And that way, we don't have anybody ever any mayor ever trying to create our business for us by trying to pick off people that they think will show up.
Oh, that happened, the budget, right? At the end of the year, so there was some end of the year
Might have,
that got called.
I actually don't remember the topic. I remember it happening.
Who's going to serve the written notice? Is it going to be the clerk, or by written notice
Yeah,
served by the clerk?
it would be that the clerk would be notified.
I think what you want to do is replace the mayor with the clerk of council. A special meeting of council may be called by the president of council or by any two members thereof, or by the clerk.
No, the mayor can
Mayor.
still, the mayor
Oh, so you don't want to change?
no, the mayor can still call the meeting, just has to do it through the clerk of council. As opposed to, so that should be a shall, as opposed to, getting on the phone and calling up members.
So you could just add by the clerk at the end of
Or
that
by written
sentence.
note?
And
Yeah, I'm wondering how you modify that
are
first
we
sentence.
okay with, also, can we add notice, electronic notice instead of just telephone or written notice?
Written notice could be an email.
Can it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Such notice shall be served by the clerk and shall state.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I want something in here that says that the council president will still create the agenda. That is the council president's job. So in other words, whatever another person might want, and I'm not suggesting you can't want something. I'm saying this to council and a mayor. But at the end of the day, the approval still has to be the council president, because that's what the charter says. The charter says that the council president creates the agenda.
Well, then you need another sentence at the end.
At the end.
Craig, I'm
Yes.
doing this electronically.
Okay.
So we can have something to email. So.
And those of us that are senior citizens.
I'm just
we're
saying this will be
handwriting
easier than
notices.
typing it in later. So do we want to wordsmith that at the end now? Is that what you wanted?
Council president shall have
Sole authority to set the agenda?
Yeah.
They
Are
can
you
fix-
redlining it so we can tell?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Man, listen to those keys are
I
saying.
literally do this all day for.
Doing this.
all right, so that's
Okay, let's do
all right. I'm not trying to move too quickly, but I want to move somewhat quickly. Emergency meetings. Same thing. Third line, or by the mayor. We're okay with the 4-hour notice and the phone call thing and all that business. But again, the mayor, notifying the clerk of council, and then let the sentence go.
So we'll do the same. I mean,
President?
it'll be
Such notice by the
mirroring
clerk.
the other
Yeah.
one.
It's the same thing.
Can we
Now,
just, what does emergency mean as opposed to special?
So
Can you
special,
define that for me?
yeah, kinda. Special means 24-hour notice. And you can have, I believe, multiple topics. I think an emergency, you can only do one topic.
Okay.
And
Shorter notification time.
Right, the difference is with emergency meetings, it's whatever is put on the agenda. We can't add anything at the time, but a special meeting, we could add
yeah,
agenda
that's right.
items. That's
It's
the,
That's right.
amendable.
yeah.
Okay,
yeah, it is amendable.
all right, thank you.
And do we need to put, I just put a note here, do we need to put, or the council vice president in the absence of the,
How about council president or his or her designee?
it's always,
Well, in the absence of the council president,
Vice
it defaults automatically to the vice president. There's the council
how about
president. is
council
available.
vice president or designee so that, in the case of like if we both couldn't make it or something, but there was still a need for an emergency meeting.
I think we need the designee language if you're gonna have
Maybe.
sole authority.
But it can be then called by any two members. So,
Called. True.
Well, I want to ask a substantive question here. The whole point of having a special meeting that may be called by any two members is for two members to set an agenda for the meeting, which we otherwise cannot do because the president of council sets the agenda for the meeting. So, we're moving pretty quickly, but I'm not sure if we want to relinquish that right to have two members. What if the council president is out of control or there's some issue, you don't know. It depends on who's in the seat. They may not be as reasonable and
Well, there's a I forget if
Something
it's
like-
always,
that's a good point you raised.
it's
What
downstream
if,
here, but it is.
Now, and if
There would
you're-
always be new business though, right? On the agenda.
not for
Not for
an
emergency.
emergency.
No, but for
If your
special.
goal is to not have the mayor set the agenda, then we should change the language to something like only, like the mayor shall not have the authority to set the meeting
Well,
agenda, or the meeting
mayor-
of the agenda
The
shall.
mayor can call the meeting and he could say why he wants to have it. But the agenda approval should be by the council president.
But I'm pushing back on that and saying, let's say it's not you, Tony, and
I
it's
understand.
crazy person that's taken the council president. They're going to set an agenda, and we want to set an agenda to
Well, there is.
consider you for malfeasance or something.
Well, that's in here. I mean, you can get rid of a council president with 4 votes. I forget which one.
no,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
we have to remove.
No, I don't want-
them.
I don't
No,
want-
I think that only comes up every 2 years. We can't remove the president or the
Oh, yes, you
vice
can.
president unless
Absolutely.
we change that in the charter. I don't think we did.
I think that there's.
Wait, it's in the charter and it was not removed.
We'll let Craig research that, but I think for.
I don't, listen,
We got sidetracked.
Okay.
I think we should
Yeah.
just say
afraid that-
council members. Only council members shall be able to set the agenda for special meetings instead of the council president, because otherwise we're stripping council members of their right to
I can
call
do
their
that.
own meeting.
I'm reading from. Looking for.
And I'll send this, we can all look at it in writing, but I do think we want to preserve the ability for two council members to,
To put forth an agenda item.
it says, yeah,
Then you have 11-109, in the absence of the president, vice president, discharge the duty, be clothed with all the powers of the presidents. Absence of both the president, vice president, the councilman present may choose one of their members, president pro tem, and discharge the duty. So there's already that designated language is in there.
that's just
That's
who
in the
serves in that
absence.
role, but what Tony, the
I
language,
understand.
yeah. I wish we could be on a Google Doc and we can all look at this
I
at the
know.
same. Actually, is there a way to share on the screen while I do this from my computer?
Okay, it's in 11107, it talks, and I really don't want to do this all night, but in 11107, it actually says if a vacancy occurs or if council determines by at least 4 members that the president or vice president is unable to fulfill their duties for the respective office, council shall immediately proceed to elect one of its members to serve.
That's what it
such office.
allows, but we need to be able to take a special meeting and put that on the agenda.
I understand that,
Right.
but I was just responding.
Yeah.
Well, if we don't like you
Right,
or the job you're doing,
right.
that does not allow us to remove the president or vice president. You have to be unable to fulfill your duties.
I think that has been deemed to be something that the council can determine by our law. Again,
Yeah.
I said this up front. we need to run all this stuff by the law director.
Yeah, and yeah, it's always been my understanding that we're locked in the absence of any misfeasance or malfeasance or illness. Whoever is council president serves, we just can't suddenly decide we don't like the way you're doing things. Not you, but whoever that person is.
Understood. Oh, that's great. So that was for the community center. Sense of that, yeah. That was quick.
I guess it's over.
Let's hope so.
But, Counselor Cobb, what did you just say about we don't have the authority as council to remove a president or vice president? Just because we don't like it.
Just because we're unhappy with their performance unless it is deemed them being unable to fulfill their duties.
So council could determine that that particular person was unable to fulfill the duties of the respective office.
And let's
Per
just
the charter.
let's just leave this to the law director as to interpret that.
Just
I mean,
says
because that's
unable, not.
Well, I think the question is, do we want to make any changes to 07 so we could get there?
We'll get there when we're at 07, and I have no problem with that. I just want to I'm fine with the distinction you made, Council. Okay, so on the quorum question, this is 1104. I think we need to put something in here about now that you can attend via Zoom. That would be a quorum, and I think so. I don't have any language for that, but
So is that a question? Like we're asking if the Zoom?
no, I don't have any question that I think we need to put that in here. Because now to be compatible with the charter, I would think we'd need to put that in here.
Yes,
This doesn't forbid it, but I mean, let's make this as clear as possible.
I do agree that we need to change that to take advantage of this charter provision.
So,
And I really don't like the wording of this whole thing, by the way.
I was actually just in a parliamentary procedure today for my training, and there is you can only do it if it's in the bylaws. You can only have electronic attendance, voting, all of that has to be spelled out, so we would have to add that.
do you remember the term we use in the charter? That we don't use Zoom, but do you remember? Because
Teleconference?
members may be considered
By
in
means of
attendance.
teleconference, video conference, or other similar electronic communications technology.
Wait,
Which,
or other similar. Just read the last part of that.
or other similar electronic communications technology.
So here's what I've drafted. After the word ordinance, members may be considered in attendance either in person or by means of teleconference, video conference, or other similar electronic communications technology.
And shall
To
constitute a quorum.
Well,
So,
that will.
yeah, I mean,
So-
it's,
Looking at the Ohio Administrative Code about this, it says that you can do this with if at least 1/3 of trustees are in person, all votes are taken by roll call vote, and they must notify the chair of that intent no less than 48 hours before the meeting, except in an emergency. So I don't know if you want to put that in, but that's what's in the code.
The administrative code for who? For the Ohio administrative
The
code?
Ohio Legislative Service, Administrative Code, yes.
Yeah,
That's for them, I guess.
Yeah, I think we're
Sorry.
controlled by our charter.
Okay.
Yeah, so I put in members may be considered in attendance to constitute a quorum either in person or by means of blah, blah, blah.
I'm fine with that, but the long run-on sentence that constitutes what we're doing here now, it needs to be reworded. I mean, it's one of those sentences where you read it and you just get lost because it's poorly worded.
I'll make a suggestion here to break it up into a couple sentences.
On adjournment, which is 05, we thought that was fine. It says may be adjourned to a later date because, obviously You don't want it to have to be. Meetings and records, 06, we were okay. 07, we just started to discuss that. So everybody take a look at that and just take a minute to read 07.
Could this be an amendment to a agenda that we're all sitting in? That somebody moves that that's what they want to do is determine that president or vice president is unable to fulfill the duties? Is that how it happens?
If they moved,
Adding an amendment to, or amend the agenda to include, or they make a motion during
I mean,
new
you're
business.
saying, how would you do this?
Yes.
You know, because it's the how you would do it is not in here.
Just says
Well-
immediately.
But it's not a how.
I am not in favor of putting a provision in that would allow for the removal of the president or the vice president without substantial justification or cause.
So can we make that a stronger statement then as 11.07?
Well, my read of this, and our law director isn't here, that's a term of art, unable to fulfill the duties of the respective office.
That to me reads like incapacity.
Yes,
No.
that is typically what that means.
Okay, I get that.
But you're saying, would you like to put a malfeasance?
No, I'm saying we stated on here that we have the opportunity as council members to determine that the president or vice president is unable to fulfill the duties of the respective office. And then says council shall immediately proceed to elect one of its members to serve in such office. How does that happen? It's not going to happen in a bubble.
By motion, it should say
Motion and
something.
In a meeting that we're already in?
I think it should be spelled out. I'm agreeing with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it should say by we had this same discussion about the mayors being incapacitated in the
In the charter.
in the charter. And we were like, I mean, the way it was worded,
Yeah.
you would have no idea how it would
We
happen.
should pull the charter. We fixed, didn't you fix that though in the
Yes.
charter?
Oh,
So we
yes.
should, maybe we can just align the language, not the malfeasance part, but the process part.
There is a process.
I'll make a note here and I'll do that after the meeting and then we can.
Thank you, appreciate that.
I'd like to weigh in real quickly. I don't think there should be a malfeasance piece to it. I think it's straight up vote.
I think we're in agreement there. I think
Okay.
what we're saying is should we add in a sentence about the process?
Well, you're saying without
language?
cause, you should be able to do it.
Without cost.
And
Oh.
are you saying that?
But you
Well-
do believe that we should be able to remove the council president?
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying.
Well.
I mean,
he's-
that's not what we
Right,
have
but
been,
he's-
you're bringing up something new.
Sorry about that.
I mean, if the council has lost confidence in the person and it's like 6 months into it, do you really want to go another year and a half with I don't know.
Well, that's a low, so you're talking about like 3 tracks here, unable to fill the duties as a incapacitated, moved, et cetera, issue, like is no longer serving. Then you have malfeasance, which is a very high bar for misbehavior. And what you're talking about is no bar for behavior. You can have incapacitated and both of those, none
Right,
of
there's
those.
There's
Yeah.
three
I
very.
mean, you can increase it to 5 votes as opposed to 4. But I mean, the issue here is, I think sometimes, politics, and I'm not thinking of this council.
I am
And I'm not thinking about the way it was when I got on this council with the dysfunction. Not necessarily with council. But sometimes you just need an escape hatch, okay?
people who haven't talked.
Well, At any point, since this is an ordinance, you council members, if they wanted to get rid of the president, they could vote to change this provision. I am
To get rid of them.
Or, we also have there's a 2/3 threshold in the charter. What we could do, and your point is well taken about making it 5, but what if we had a separate where we have 4 if they're unable to fulfill the duties of their respective office. But if a council determines by at least 2/3, which is effectively 6, that they'd like to
What is
replace
2/3 6?
it's in the charter. It's in a fractional form instead of
is it 2/3 or 3/4?
3/4. Sorry, it might be 3. I don't do math, but it could be
3/4
but
of the
it's
members.
listed as 3/4 of the members instead of 4 or 5 or 6. So that could be like the highest bar, and we'd have to figure out the language of just that would really be.
You don't want to invite instability. I
Can
get
we-
that.
Yeah.
Can we add, just as a way to temper this, can we add a notice provision? So that it doesn't happen when, there's an argument and then suddenly there's a vote and that would be the thing that I would say is that it has to be put on the agenda and that there's notice this is gonna happen, discussions, so that it doesn't, it's not a lightning bolt
Whimsical.
decision. Yeah. I know would be a very difficult thing to put on an agenda since the mayor has control of the agenda. So that is.
The president has control of the
But there
agenda.
could be at least a
The
notice.
mayor doesn't have any.
Or not the mayor, but I mean the council president,
That's
if you're
right.
replacing that person.
So it would have to be like new business and somebody raises their hand and then they make a motion. And I
That's
mean,
not
that's,
That there,
You're saying about actually having it pre-existing on the agenda as it's published.
I'm just trying to figure out a way that there could be at least notice or,
there's a way to, there's really not a way to notice it in the practical sense that what council president in their right mind would put that on the
Right,
agenda
right.
to have themselves ousted. So it would have to be brought up as a motion, but it could still be something in here that says, and this would have to be discussed over a period of 2 meetings, or I don't know. So, I mean, I don't want to get into those weeds, but I understand what you're.
Yeah.
Due
I can't
diligence.
think of any occasion in the history of this city where other council members sought to remove the council president or vice president before their 2-year term was up. They simply dealt with it until the next election came up, and then they voted that person out and put someone new.
I feel that just being able to call it, a vote at any time is too, I think it leads to chaos. I would not support that. Agree with you.
It's like in England, or
It's
you
just
could
too easy,
call
it's just
you know,
too easy
parliament, they call
for
an election.
something to go awry with that, so.
I mean, here's just suggested language like that ties all this together. Removal of the president or vice president may also be affected by the calling in of emergency meeting pursuant to 111.03 and placing such a motion on the agenda. The motion must be passed by a 3/4 vote of council.
That's good.
I'll tell you what, I
Should
think
I
we
stick
should,
it in there?
I think we should move
Emergency
on.
or special.
I think we should look at that, run it
It's the
past
only
Bill.
thing I'm-
I also think we should ask the law director to what other cities have
Yes.
for this type of provision, because I would like to see if other cities do it. First of all, if it's common, I'd like to know that, and I don't. And I'd also like to know if they do it, how they do it.
I'm going to say this is person language as we figure this out.
All right, is it okay if we move on to 08?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this one, it says, there's a he in there in the second sentence, so let's get rid of that.
There was also councilmen at some point.
Oh, okay, I mean, let's also, keep looking for
What
that.
in lieu of he, it's a they.
Or the president.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I think just putting the president shall, because that's who you're referring to. This shall preserve order. I don't know about shall you got a list of things here. Decorum and prevent personal reflection. You know, if one of you is waxing a little bit, during council comments, do I want to have to, and it's just me, but should the council president have to stop you? I mean, that's a little bit much, you know? I mean, somebody just says, hey, I remember when I was a kid, da-da-da, and that's literally the only thing they say. And then they go on with some business thing.
Well, how about just taking out prevent personal reflection?
Right.
Because there's a lot of personal reflection that
I mean,
goes
my
on.
God, we all do it.
Yeah,
No,
confine members to the debate and the question, yeah.
Okay.
Wait, what section are we on? Where did I?
Oh, wait.
1108. So we're just gonna take out prevent personal reflection.
We don't, yeah.
We're
We don't want
reflecting.
people, we don't want us to be thoughtful.
Now, it is in Robert's rules, you're not supposed to do this.
Right, correct,
So understand that in the absence of something, Robert's rules prevails.
right.
So,
I see.
but at least
I see.
it's,
I was
at least it's not, it doesn't become a mandatory.
I
cutoff.
agree, yes, I agree.
And I would say that if I saw a lot of that, and the meetings were running late and everybody's, there's maybe a point where you just go, enough already.
But it also says you can confine members in debate to the question, which is a Robert's Rule of Order.
Yes.
And
So
that-
if you've got somebody that's off topic, then that is your opportunity as president to say,
Yeah.
I call.
And we've done that.
And in the next sentence, when it says violates any of the rules, probably should Robert's Rules of Orders, what rules?
I don't think we've officially.
No, we don't.
But
We
it
don't-
says later on, Robert's Rules of Orders
Oh,
governs.
does it?
Yeah, that's later in the.
Well, we should be consistent.
So Sarah, there's Robert's rules of
11124.
There's Robert's Rules of Order, but council can also make rules by motion.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and
Right.
so
So
You know,
I
the
just don't
rules-
know what the rules are.
we actually had a long talk about council rules and we kind of decided, Councilman Cobb said, there's people that aren't going to follow this no matter what we do. So are we really going to, Anyway. Okay, so are we good there? With,
I always follow the rules.
no, I know you do, but I'm talking about the idea that we made a rule that we knew there were people on council that would never follow them. So do we really want to do that? That was what I was talking about. Absence of president, that was fine. The clerk one, number 10, that was, this was,
Oh, there's a typo.
this was, what's the word I want to say, made to comport with the charter amendment that was passed in 22. And so when this says at the end, passed 6/3/2024, that actually did happen. That wasn't just some,
A quick thing, and I know this came up before, if I could. We have this provision here that the clerk could be removed by a majority of council. I know we had some discussion about whether we wanted to raise that bar.
Which one is that in? A, B, C?
1110A.
Okay.
Shall serve during good behavior and may be removed only by the vote of a majority of council as described above.
I don't remember. Did we talk about that? Because I don't remember talking about that.
Yeah, and I thought we had raised the bar to remove them. Or just so they needed cause to be removed. But again, it is a political appointment, the clerk. So
This happened in another municipality
it-
recently.
It happens and it's
It
not
happens.
uncommon for it to happen. Okay, forget it.
Well, no, do you want to, right? I mean,
Well,
what do you want to do?
I just
You want to make it 5?
See,
well, what does everyone else think about that?
it was very important, I think, to most people on council. We did have differences of opinion that the clerk of council works for 7 people. And the fact that the president supervises that person and does the evaluation is only because you can't really do something by committee. But as far as The employment, I think that absolutely should be a simple majority just because I think that's enough to be a problem. You know, if the majority of council doesn't feel they can work with the clerk, I think that's enough. But
I don't have strong feelings.
I'm fine with it staying there. I think we spent a lot of time talking about who she would report to, who would supervise her, and I don't know that we've had any problems.
we haven't. But keep in mind, what we did do was take that out of the charter and we put it in the ordinance, which was the right thing to do.
Well, it's more easily amendable at this
Yeah,
point.
I mean, that was, I don't even want to reflect on that stuff. That was not okay. Some of that's, anyway. Okay.
Does hiring just need to be a majority vote?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, but
That's currently what it is, right?
Yes.
We're leaving that.
Yeah.
So if we termination would also be majority vote.
yes. 11 committees. You got a his and a he in there. And then, so I'm on the third last line. President does, it says, the member first name shall act as chairman. There you go. There's another one. Okay, so we got chairman, we got he, his. So we got a few of these to, okay, the president does not attend and act. So it basically what it makes it sound like is the default is the president is going to run every committee meeting unless they don't want to. Whereas I understand this provision of having the council president have the ability to reclaim, if you will, a chair. I'm never going to do it. I don't think it should be the default position.
Just take out that word then when the president does not attend and act.
Well, no, I think you need the president shall appoint members of the committee
And she'll serve.
and the members' roles on their
And-
respective
Maybe you don't have
committees.
the vice chair either.
Right, because then because what you did was appoint the chair, the vice chair, and the member, so.
Yeah.
And member first name shall act as chairman of the, that's very old. It was last passed in 1949. Sounds like it.
Well, that's,
It's separate from this, what we just talked about, but we did have an occasion when
Yeah,
I had a committee meeting. I did not have quorum, and we had to figure out how we could have the president be a member of that committee.
and that's where it helps. So I don't have a problem with putting something in here that says, president could be
Yeah.
a member or chair of the committee, but not that that the chair only serves when the president says it's okay. What do you got?
well, because as written now, every time you would, whoever the president is,
Automatically.
we're changing the voting
That's
numbers.
true.
Oh, yeah.
You're right.
Unintended, yes.
So the fix, I think, is that you shall appoint members of the committees and we'll, obviously the law department and Craig will take a look, we can all take a look, the members' roles on their respective committees. And then add a sentence, say the president shall serve as an ex officio member of every committee or every committee in the absence of a quorum. I mean, how do you want
No,
to?
I would just say every committee, and then there's that latitude,
And that makes you a voting member on every committee.
if and only if.
That ex officio means non-voting.
Ex officio means.
But you could say that something like the chair of the committee may have the president act as a member in the absence of other committee members. Because may act as an alternate member in the absence of other
Well,
members.
this needs work because he serves right now currently on 2 committees.
Yeah.
Which that's already allowed, but so we're gonna need to.
Wordsmith on this.
Yeah, okay, I'm making, so what do you, so our goal is, what is our goal? To have the president
it's an alternate member.
Okay, that was the word
That
you
may be
used, yeah.
that may be appointed by the committee chair, should a quorum be required.
Oh, I like that, something like that.
Yeah, that would have helped me in that situation.
You earned your salary tonight.
Well, thank you.
You may go
At
home
least
now.
I got one thing right here.
That $320
$320?
That was kind of a low blow.
every 2 weeks.
Less than that.
Really?
Well, now that we're having all these
More
meetings.
than that.
Yeah, how many meetings?
Oh, $320 for every 2 weeks. I think we're down to like $1 an hour at this point. So there's.
We've got 4 meetings.
And I
It's
know
bad.
this is off track, but while I'm thinking about it, our salary is now below the amount that earns you a full year of PERS credit. So
Oh, oofta. For those of
keep
you.
that in mind, for those of you that are gonna accumulate enough PERS.
Well, that's not me,
Years.
but this does align with one of my legislative objectives was to consider raising our salaries.
Yeah, it finally, because they raise it every year and it's like,
Right. I'm gonna take my privilege and take your chairmanship away because we're off topic now. Alright. So on to
Okay.
12. This needs to be revised because it's not our current
It's the journal.
Reading and disposal of journal.
Minutes.
That's from 12.
was that reading and disposal of journal is the minutes?
Sure. but-
How about
Approval of the minutes.
approval of minutes?
Well, if somebody would send me our normal, I mean, I'm sure I can pull it up from an
Yeah.
agenda, but we just want to align this with our agenda framework. Is that
But-
the?
I would like to entertain any discussion about, this breaking up of the
Public comment?
public comment. Yeah, thank you.
Right. I was gonna say you should.
And also, so approval of consent agenda, that actually needs to come down. And consideration of ordinances, resolutions, and motions need to be moved up. But Jessica, we could just,
This doesn't set the order, it just says what has to be
Oh,
included.
fair.
It doesn't say it's gotta be in any particular.
oh, okay. When I was reading it, I was kind of like, this is out of order.
What does it mean, consideration of ordinances, resolutions, and motions not part of the consent agenda?
That's
I
the
mean,
legislative agenda.
But so why do we, I mean,
Yeah, what an odd thing to say,
an odd way to put it, why don't you
Yeah.
just say legislative agenda?
which is what we're here for.
Right,
And this consent agenda thing is kind of like, okay,
enough,
it's this
and
thing we do.
Well, I mean, you
But-
could,
And we don't have to do
but,
it.
but you could suspend the rules and pass any legislation under consent agenda. That's,
Yeah, like a whole bunch of stuff, right? Yeah, that's.
I mean, there's a lot of rules and procedure machinations that you can affect here.
That was the legislation, called legislation that we passed during the school district on the board. We ended up doing a consent agenda, and it opened up our meeting time to really learn more about operations in the city. And we just do a quick, essentially a rubber stamp, because that's essentially what most of the stuff was. I mean, I don't see us being able to do that from a transparency perspective here.
Well, what the consent agenda takes away is the ability for discussion and any council member's ability to comment on that particular piece of legislation, because the consent agenda is voted on as a slate, essentially.
But when we vote, we say, do we have a motion and, second, and then discussion. So, I mean, you could still discuss it at that point.
But that's on the matter of a consent agenda, whether you wanna,
I mean, I understand
Bill could be really,
the reason
yeah.
why it exists, but technically you still can't discuss things. But do we want to differentiate public comment on
Legislative items.
legislative items and public comment other? Or just
I would just leave it as it is.
if it's not an order issue, then
No,
Okay.
nor is it, I
Sorry,
mean, that's
that's-
all inclusive.
I don't know. Maybe I was going to click on that one.
Just looking at the last regular council meeting, there's not even a recognition of a consent agenda on the agenda. So it's not even.
I think we had a
Well, it
consent.
depends on which we're talking about, because we do have it sometimes and other times we don't. I think we had it on the last one though.
We had 8 items under it.
Yeah, it's usually the months, the designations of the months, and I think Addie said she likes to do that on the first meeting of the preceding month. So we might not have it next meeting, but we have it next.
Right. Let's keep moving because it's, we're getting a little bit late. Okay, so action of council, this is 13. One of the most contentious things that happened over the last 4 years was about this in particular. Council shall act by ordinance or resolution. I mean, that is it. And then we had this kind of MOU thing come up, okay? And we had a big argument about this. It's like, okay, if it gives us these 2 things, we're allowed, this is our voice, and it goes through these 2 things, ordinances and resolutions. I don't know, do we need to put, and no other, I mean, I don't know. I always thought shall was so ironclad. And I will tell you, it was deemed murky. And I don't want this to be murky. If this is the way we speak, then this is it.
Shall is pretty definitive.
I mean,
Shall's the limiting provision here. You either have ordinance or resolution that's duly adopted. I mean, so are you trying to make it more open or more closed?
I want it to be, I think you're all right. And we didn't all, but we argued within council and within the law department on this. And the MOU was a very divisive.
Oh, are you saying that
maneuver.
the council should not be able to make a MOU? And according to this, our governing order?
I'm saying we shouldn't be able to, if this stands and we need language to stop any other ways of making an action, then we need to do that because otherwise you could have councils making side agreements with a mayor and, it happened and it was very divisive and the language was as it is now.
Should be shall only.
Well, I think it was also determined that it wasn't binding on council either.
But I don't think that's the issue. I really don't think whether or not it's binding is the issue. It's if council can speak other ways than ordinances and resolutions, I don't think it matters whether it's binding or not.
The only way you can narrow this any bit further, to your point, Councilman DeWitt Foy, is by saying council shall solely act by ordinance or resolution.
So let me ask this, are there any circumstances where the president and the vice president reach an understanding with the mayor about something without coming to city council and getting a vote on it? Has that happened?
So give me an example.
I don't know. I'm not in these meetings.
Well, it can happen. It cannot happen according to this because it has to be an
But
ordinance.
does it happen that
Yeah, but that's not a council action though. Like if
Yeah, it is.
yeah.
No, wait. If I say, hey, let's meet on Tuesdays,
I think that's what Craig was saying.
What I'm saying is I think there have been occasions where council leadership, and I'm talking about now with the new mayor, have reached an understanding
that's binding for council?
that, what we've discussed it with the mayor, and this is what we've decided to do without putting it to a vote to council. I don't know, but I also wouldn't want to tie your hands to reach some decisions with the mayor or some understandings with the mayor. And this trust that if it's something big enough that you'll come to council and get our approval on it.
I just can't think of anything that we've done or talked about that falls into that category, but
reading this, I feel like this is sufficient. If you add a word solely, you may be limiting this even more. So then like what can council, I don't know. I mean, shall act to say that this is only for policy. I mean, I guess the question is like, how far does this go? Obviously, we go to community events and we speak to residents and, you know, but if this is talking only about policy, then this to me seems sufficient.
Could you say the council may pass or may address legislation by ordinance or resolution only, so it's just about legislation.
I agree with you. I would leave it as it is.
Yeah, there's this whole oversight thing, and oversight might not be an ordinance or a resolution of any kind, but it might be, hey, we really need to see the books. We need to see something.
So that's why solely I would go against narrowing this
I would go
even further.
against-
Right.
Right, I would go against that. I mean, I think there's some things in Ohio Revised Code that gives us the capability to use oversight, because that's the easiest, but
I guess what I want to know is, maybe this is just for the law director, how do we define this so that it doesn't, there's not a loophole for.
There's always gonna be
Yeah.
a loophole, just like the rules they're only as good as the paper they're written on if they don't want to follow. But so for example, I'm ready to move on. I wouldn't make any changes to it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
We're about halfway through.
yeah.
Do we,
Do the next
Because
one.
I think we talked about, we would likely need a special meeting to try and finish this.
well, no, I mean, can't we just do the next, what's your next
Yeah,
administrative
because
initiative?
I don't think there are really any
So that would
vacancies or
be-
anything that have to come up.
What is the next, the committee whole version
Yeah,
of this?
take an hour and finish it.
Yeah.
Or do it
The
at
only
your next
thing is
administrative
that
council committee meeting.
If there's other, I think we're gonna need an hour to get through the rest of this. So it would
We
be,
don't have
well, I'm just saying, it would just depend on whether or not there was any other more urgent
I don't
business.
really think there is any other business right now. Most of these boards and commissions are in pretty good shape.
No, I'm fine with keeping this meeting to an hour.
Also
I
would
mean,
depend on what happens with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
We won't know that.
We'll know more.
Yeah.
So you want to do the consent agenda? I mean, do we have any, did you have anything on the consent agenda piece?
No, actually, nothing on consent agenda, nothing on 14, nothing on 15. So let's start with, I mean, of course, if we come back and somebody says, well, I looked 13, 14, and 15 over and I got a lot of things, I'll certainly, but my next, I got something on, just so you know, I have something on 16, 17, 19, 20, 21, 23, 24, 25,
It's an hour.
28.
But we're more than
30.
halfway, if we're up to 16, then we're more than halfway through.
Yeah.
So.
can I bring one quick thing up? And maybe this is an issue for Bill. I mean, if you, on 1113, sometimes we don't use the word yay and nay.
Well, that's what the rule says. We say yes, some people say yes and no.
Where does it say?
It's the last paragraph.
So you want to
How's your
institute a
vote?
penalty for that?
Yes.
Financial.
$1 council salary.
I do have something for
Other?
other. Are we at other?
Yeah, we're at other.
Bless you.
It's been drawn to my attention. I'm sorry if I don't have enough for everybody, just for the committee members, for chair and for vice chair. not all of the boards and commissions on the website list the membership. And so like CAC, the arts, these are the ones that do not have their members listed. Arts Commission, Citizens Advisory Committee, Civil Service Commission, Fair Practices Board, Let's Safe Advisory Board, which we know hasn't convened, but Parks and Rec Advisory Board, I checked them on the website. They're not.
Yeah.
So that's for you.
Well, I've asked Addie, but did you share with her this specific list where there are names? I'll make sure that she does. Yes. Yeah, and there's some updating that needs to be done to that.
And I would also advise you, when you do have new members on your committee, your citizen committees, follow up and check to make sure that they were posted, because there has been times when I've had to remind Addie that she needs to do that. So just keep that in mind, because it's important these are updated.
I think it would be very helpful to have, for the ones that have specific terms, to have, when the term is ending, so that
Yes.
people know to anticipate to submit.
Let's just schedule a chair, so this is under
I
other.
thought Addie had circulated a Zoom poll.
Yeah.
Did
Well,
she?
just keep in mind, that's another Administrative Services Committee meeting. I understand it's Committee of the Whole, but
Well, that's going to depend upon their availability. I don't know that we necessarily held that meeting.
It was, when I went to it as planning commission
Yeah.
chair, it was just like it wasn't an official committee meeting or anything.
okay. I don't know.
I think
And it
Especially
may
when
not
you go back
even- I don't even think it was a Monday night either.
No, it was during the day. I think I had to leave work for it or something.
Any other? Okay, well, with that, it's 8:02 according to the clock, and this meeting is adjourned.